I'm just gonna miss you so much. I don't even know if I'm ready for this conversation.
Well, so Matt
of an era.
End of an era. I was just looking back. Yeah, April 22 was my first, April not 22nd, but April 2022, I made my debut on this podcast. And now, friends, it's my time to say goodbye so we can usher in a new friend to take over and join Matt in the wonderful world of Can You Make It Pretty?
Yeah, I love that it is a new friend and not a replacement, because there's just no way to replace you. And I mean, you and I go back to Leadership Institute. When I hire new people and they're like, hey, how does this work? I'm like, I have the perfect person for you to talk to. And I send them your phone number. And then you make them feel way at ease about what's happening and, the direction of higher education. So it's, you have been a pretty stable force of good in my professional life since the day we met. So I'm going to miss having this structured time to talk to you each month.
Totally.
So we're going to have to make unstructured time for that to happen.
I'm good with that.
That's enough sappiness. Let's spill some tea.
Okay.
What has it been like hosting this podcast for the 2 years?
Learning curve for sure. Right. So it's been this is my first time doing the podcast format. So definitely a learning curve. I learn I have a lot of tics. I say so a lot. I have jangly jewelry that interrupts with the mic. So that has been fun. I learned that I can take direction, which I kind of, already knew, but I was really serious about the direction that I received, and I tried to improve. And, I was open to not critiques, but I was open to the feedback. And I think that's really helpful. I was willing to be a student because I did not know, other than being a listener, I had no idea what it was like to be on the back end. So I was willing to be a student. Jeff Julian, I just did the tick thing. Jeff Julian was great at kind of helping me learn, helping me grow on this platform, on this medium. Jacqueline was really helpful in helping, obviously talk to people, but then kind of navigate building out these questions, because I thought it really had to be rigid. And then through her guidance, I kind of learned it could be more fluid. You don't have to follow this verbatim. Like, oh, cool. Okay. That's helpful. And then I just learned that our members are amazing. Our colleagues are amazing. Our colleagues are doing all kinds of amazing work across the U.S. and territories that sometimes we don't have an opportunity to spotlight them. And so this was a really great way to spotlight our colleagues and really get into some of the minutia. Like, again, crisis comes. We all know what it is. We all deal with it at some point or another, but we get to put a spotlight on one of our colleagues and our members that has 18 years experience. Where are you going to get that?
Nowhere. Except here, right here on the Can You Make It Pretty podcast.
Right here on this pod. Right. So, again, testament to this podcast and Jacqueline and the team at NCMPR who help come up with the topics and find the members and kind of help us put this together, because it is really helpful to hear all the different facets of our jobs. We don't all have the opportunity to focus on one specific thing. And we're all in the trenches of our own nonsense. So to hear someone else's nonsense, it's like, oh, that's cool nonsense that I haven't heard about before.
Yeah, especially when it rhymes with your nonsense. You're like, it's not just my nonsense.
Oh, when we can be in the nonsense trench together, that's really like, yes, I see you, you see me. We're on the same page right now. I feel your pain.
sitting in the hot spring of nonsense.
Of together. Nonsense, just stewing in it.
Soaking it in.
So that's what I've learned. And that's just, again, been a really cool opportunity to get to know our membership better, to get to speak to our members, to get to just learn so much about the types of things that go on at colleges across the country that I was not privy to before, because I just don't have the time or bandwidth to be poking around in everyone else's business.
Who does? But for 30 minutes once a month, we can make it happen.
Poke around in someone else's business.
So what was your most surprising moment?
Surprising moment. Again, our members are just gems. Like, the people that we spoke to dropped all kinds of just knowledge on us and funny tidbits. We're all chaotic in our own special way. Like, we are all, we're all wonderful. And we all have chosen to go into this field, which, bless our hearts, all of us, because
yes.
No one, not one of us as a child was like, I want to be in higher ed marketing when I grow up. No, that is not what
just
happened.
Me. I think I was the only one.
Just you, Matt. That was you.
I have a picture that my mom keeps on her fridge that I drew in kindergarten. And oddly enough, it was me hosting a podcast, which is weird because podcasts didn't exist when I was in kindergarten. But
such a forward thinker.
Hosting a podcast. And on the background, this is the part where it diverges from what's actually happening, but it says Community College Marketing Podcast. That's what it says. The banner. I actually could really write and draw as a kid. Yeah. And I had my beard. It was weird. It was frankly weird. All right. And in this year of doing this, we hear your most surprising part was how awesome the members are. What was your favorite episode and interview? And why was it one of the episodes I was co-hosting with you and not one of the ones Jeff was co-hosting with you?
So I have two, and one is a Julian episode because it was so chaotic, and one is a Matt episode because like we have a thing. Like because we're buddies. We're buddies. Because Leadership Institute buddies, like we go way back. So my episode with Jeff, I put down the Zaria episode, and she was, she still works with Duolingo. And she was talking about how unhinged they've made Duo their mascot. And that episode, one, she's amazing. So one, just being able to talk to her, hear from the non-higher ed side of things, and just hearing her explain, like, we made our mascot unhinged and this is why, and it works. I was like, I'm sorry, what? You're speaking in a foreign language. I have no idea what you're talking about, and I don't know how to apply this, but this is also amazing to hear this insider knowledge.
I love her, and I love that episode too. Not gonna lie.
That episode was great, and she was great. So that was early on. I think that was my third or fourth episode that I recorded. So that one was really fun.
And seriously, if you're listening to this and you have not listened to that eepisode, you need to go back and listen to it. It's incredible. It's great episode.
And then the one that it wasn't because it was a happy-go-lucky topic, but our guest was excellent, and I really enjoyed what she had to say about the topic. So the topic that I really enjoyed in this last year was the unconscious bias conversation that we had with Tashelle. And I just thought that it was a really impactful conversation. I really loved how she broke it down for us, because I think it is still I think a lot of people just have a really hard time wrapping their brains around it. And now with so many, what's going on in the country with DEI initiatives being knocked back, like, I think it's so important to go back to those conversations, and it just proves more and more that it's going to rely on us as individuals to want to do the work and not have it be imposed on us by our colleges, because in some cases that may not be a thing anymore. DEI may not be a thing anymore. Yes. So I think it's just a really important conversation, and she was a wonderful person to have on to talk about it. So those were the two that kind of stood out.
Great choices. I concur. I learned a lot during that conversation, and it's a personal favorite for me too. So you chose wisely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But we will be having someone new. I'm not allowed to say who yet. And I just want to say that, Matt, it has been a pleasure getting to do this with you as well. We have been able to have a better relationship since the start. So we started in leadership together, and now we've gotten this far together. And it has been a lot of fun to get to do this.
But co-hosting this with you really has been a gem for me. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for me personally and professionally. And I look forward to unstructured conversation with you.
It's been a pleasure. I love NCMPR. I will continue to be a member. And if you like this pod, click subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Thanks, everyone. St. Philip's College in Texas is the nation's only federally designated historically Black college and Hispanic-Serving institute. About a year ago, they received a racially motivated bomb threat. Adrian Jackson is St. Philip's Director of Marketing and Strategic Communications, and she plays a vital role in St. Philip's crisis plans. Adrian's going to walk us through a bit of what happened and why the college was so prepared for something that's so difficult to prepare for.
Adrian, what happened with the bomb threat at your college?
Now, as one of the nation's 98 HBCUs, we are occasionally targeted for terrorism, annoying behavior, hate speech, things like that. And so that bomb scare was part of that concerted effort to make an attack on HBCUs. So that happened. And it really, when it all ended, it turned out that the person who made the threat was not in the state. So there wasn't a real threat there. But as we were going through the exercise, obviously we weren't at the point where we knew that.
Right. So walk us through that day. Where were you? When did the threat come through?
Sure.
Just kind of walk us through the day.
I was in the worst possible place. I was at the grocery store because sometimes for lunch, I like to walk around the grocery store. It's my happy place. So I was at the store and I got a call from the president's administrative assistant asking me to come to an off-site location, which I said, yes, I'm on my way. So I went to check out my groceries, and one of the vice presidents called me and said, where are you? And I said, I'm checking out. I'm on my way as fast as I can. He said, no, there's a bomb threat. You need to get here now. So I just, hands off my cart, walked out of the grocery store, got to my car as quick as I could. And I was only like 8 minutes from the college, so it didn't take very long to get to the alternate site. But when I got there, I had a conversation with the president. There was a bomb scare. The police were there. The marketing team was all there. And then, of course, in a normal emergency, the marketing director and the PIO are in different locations. But because I was off site, we wound up being in the same room, which created some other challenges for us.
Right. And what was your immediate response and task once you got into, I'm assuming maybe a joint information center? I don't know what you would call it at that point.
You can call it okay. You can call it that. My responsibility is to get information directly from the president and make sure that goes out to my team. I have a PIO. Her official title is Strategic Information Coordinator. And she's the one who sends out the messaging, the emergency messaging. And we talk about, is it going to go by email, by text, and by phone, or some combination of the three of those. And she had only worked for the college for about a week. So she had not been trained to do that operation. So we actually wound up calling our district partners to meet the media on the ground because we were locked in a building. We couldn't get back to campus. So they took that on and to send out some of the messaging for us as well.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is a combination of factors. So I'm a FEMA certified advanced public information officer. So if I start using that language and it sounds crazy, Stephanie, please step in and be like, no. We need real people speak here. Because sometimes we develop that shorthand.
Yes. And I'm NIMS certified. NIMS is National Incident Management System. I'm also certified, so we can speak to each other. But you're right. For people who are listening, maybe we go too far down the rabbit hole.
Right. But what I'm hearing is the perfect storm that always exists in these situations. One, brand new person who's only been on the job for a week. Mm-hmm. Two, you're not there. You're offsite doing something, right? So it never is like the perfect, like, oh, I am in my office in a safe location in front of all of the equipment and personnel I need to really respond to this situation. So I'm curious, when you get into that offsite location, you know what to do. You have your certifications, your PIO. How's the rest of the team responding, and how are you handling that?
So we have a risk management person who works for college services. So he comes in, and of course he's been trained and he knows what he needs to do. The marketing team, somehow we all wound up in the same building. We know what our roles are. So when we come into a situation and there's chaos, because I know what my role is, my objective in that moment is to get into my role as quickly as possible. So to minimize that level of confusion, because there's always going to be confusion. There's always going to be, we were so trained, but we weren't trained for this at this time. The objective is to get there as quick as you can.
Yeah.
At what point in this process, from grocery store to, Scrum, was it determined that this was a racially motivated threat?
We had our district police on site. We had the deputy police chief on site, and he cued in very quickly that he thought it was a prank, is what he called it. Because of the way that it had come to the college, the original call came to the city of San Antonio police, not to the college police. So they route emergency calls directly to our police department. So in his experience, he thought pretty quickly, but of course, he still has to act like it's a legitimate emergency because you can't make decisions based on a hypothesis. So the idea was floating around within 15 or 20 minutes of the start of the incident, but we still went through the exercise for the next 2 hours. So we were maybe 2.5, 3 hours into experiencing this before it was determined for certain that it was a hoax and that we could go back to work.
My goodness, 2.5 hours. Well, at least you have the structure, though, so there's kind of a process to it. You can follow. It's not just sitting on your hands waiting. You've expanded the information system, and now you're just going through the steps, which is really nice to have in a situation like that, because I think some of us don't exactly know, or we don't have administrators that know exactly what that looks like. So having a process, while it did take 2.5 hours to get to the end point, sounds like at least there was some guidance and you all kind of knew that there was going to be an ebb and flow to this. Thinking of other events that have happened on your campus, have you had other racially motivated incidents on campus, and what have those been?
We had an incident several years ago where a white supremacy group tacked sheets on trees and play cards on trees. And I think they were promoting their website or something. It was very low engagement. So they had come in on the weekend and they had kind of spread their message out across campus. So we never did have an active incident because we got to it after the fact.
Yeah, we had something similar to that as well, where we've had an outside group come and infiltrate our campus with, flyers, stickers, that type of thing. But thankfully, knock on wood, knock on all the things, hasn't escalated to another level.
Now, we did have 2 employee-related situations that garnered national attention and one garnered international attention. And those 2 my department was in crisis mode for more than a year on those 2 issues. As a matter of fact, even 2 weeks ago, we were still getting hits on media and on foreign language press. And those things, they don't impact our day-to-day lives. We sit back and we watch them and we alert the executive team that, this is what the public is saying about the college. The worst thing about those long-term kinds of crises is the toll that it takes on the team. Sure. Because we have to read everything. We have to watch all the videos. We have to listen to all the talk shows and radio shows. And it's very difficult to sit in that space and listen to people who know nothing about what you do, say such horrible, hateful things about the college and the people who work at the college. So we had a lot of conversations where we just needed to get together as a team and decompress and deal with that kind of the emotional toll that takes.
Sure. Absolutely. And what does the support structure look like on your campus? So you mentioned that there was opportunities to decompress. Was there additional support?
We have as a standard, I think this was a pre-COVID introduction, but we have a certain level of mental health support here at the campus. We also have wellness checks and things like that. These are a lot of things that came about during COVID, like the wellness checks, and they've carried over because I think as a nation, we've learned that, emotional well-being, physical well-being, mental well-being are critical to being good employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems difficult to exist in that climate that, you have a threat that happens, you have those acute threats, and then just kind of this this ongoing, is today the day? Is tomorrow the day? People coming through. So does that support structure, does that carry in for students as well? Are there specific things for faculty and instructors and staff?
Yes, that what I just spoke about is really targeted to employees, which are staff and faculty. Students have their own, and actually Alamo College's district has medical centers at 3 of the 5 colleges for students to go in. So students can use those facilities for today's onset issues, physical issues, accidents, things like that. And each of the colleges has some kind of medical staff here. Here at St. Philip's, we have 2 campuses. So we have a nurse on staff all day. And their primary function is to see the students, make sure that the students are doing well, and to respond if there's an emergency.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible that those support structures need to exist, but it's excellent that they do. And that's, one part of preparation for these types of events is just, psychologically making sure that those support structures exist, and then also kind of wargaming a bit about what may or may not happen. What are some other ways that you go about preparation for this type of crisis or in the communications that need to happen?
We do drills, as most people do. We will target a specific building, a specific time of day, and then we go through an emergency drill. And that's primarily college services doing that. But the way that we support that is by initiating our emergency contact information. Some of the obstacles that we have are, we have 11 high school programs. We have 2 high schools physically on our campuses. And because the staff, some of the staff doesn't work for the college district, because some of the students don't have access to cell phones, or because their parents have access to cell phones. Sometimes when emergency messaging goes out, if it goes out and it reaches parents, they're in a panic and they want to come to campus, and campus is not where we want them at that time. Or sometimes the teachers don't even get the message because they're not plugged into our emergency system, which is an opt-in for people who are not, not here. So there's a little bit of disconnect. So we always have to turn a few extra hoops to make sure that our high school students are as fully aware as everybody else.
Right. So the challenges of the communication technology itself, and then the challenge of communicating about the communications technology, which, what a joy. We have
this is the world we live in.
A similar thing on our campus for school closures, because we have a child development center and high school students visiting. So some similarities there. Earlier, you'd mentioned NIMS is another way to get some training to be able to support these situations. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is and what it does to help with preparation?
Sure. FEMA. So NIMS goes back to September 11th. So during 9/11, one of the major issues was people had different ways of communicating with each other, governments, city governments, county governments, medical staff, and people used different equipment. So the police weren't talking to the fire, and the fire weren't talking to the mayor's office. And so the FEMA got together and said, okay, we're going to create these standards so that everybody's talking to each other in a language that we all share.
Right.
And they put out guidelines for how to do this. And the FEMA NIMS training came out of that. It says, if you are a government, which colleges are, these are the procedures, these are the positions that you need to have on your teams. These are the functions that those people need to have, depending on where they are in the structure, at what point they arrive at the scene, and all of these other factors. So most of my team has NIMS training, but we don't all have the same training. So because I am a director and I'm part of the incident command team, and I'm always with the president or whoever her designee is, my training is different than PIO training. So my PIO has a different set of classes that she's completed. The great thing about NIMS is it doesn't cost anything. FEMA provides it. So you can, I think I have 8 certifications. You can get 20 something certifications as long as you put in the time. The other thing is, if you set up an account and you use your personal email, that account will follow you throughout your career. So you can always pull your transcripts. You can always add additional courses to your load. You can do all these things. And all of the courses are taught online, asynchronous. So, it's open to whatever it is you want to do with it. It's great.
And I know you said it earlier, but can you remind me what NIMS stands for?
Sure. NIMS is National Incident Management System, and it falls under the purview of FEMA.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So you've now done the NIMS training. You have this kind of framework. How do those preparations help you? So you've mentioned that you had how many trainings? How many certificates?
I've had 8, I think. Yeah,
8. Okay. So you have all of this knowledge, and now it's time to roll it out. So how quick is it, or how quick are you to activate? Because usually, remind me, it's been a while since I've done it. There's a bin, there's documents, like you have kind of tools in place, right? Or are you literally pulling things out of your brain? You have it down to a science at this point where you know A needs to happen, B needs to happen. Talk us through that. What does that look like for you as someone who's activated your incident command center before?
I am bringing 18 years of higher ed experience into the conversation. So I pull a lot of this stuff out of my brain, whereas I would not recommend that for somebody who's only been in for 10 years or less, You have to, have your clipboard and your documentation and go through the steps. I know what I need to do, and I can assess the situation. In my career, I've had a CFO led out for embezzlement by the federal government. I've had a dorm party that ended with a comatose, completely drug-fueled, naked student on the floor. I have seen a lot of stuff, y'all. So I know when I'm supposed to go into full mode, and I think I do a pretty good job of handling the media side of it. And I have a very strong team. I have a person who's completely devoted to social media. So when I say, hey, social media, he knows what he has to do. I have a PIO who's very good at her job. She's got, I think, more years in higher ed than I do. So she knows what she's doing. I've got a strong team. And I've got a team that usually has a laptop with them wherever they are. So some of it is just being able to work well together. And some of it is just that experience, knowing you need to get into the thing that you were trained to do as quickly as possible so that you can rely on what you've learned and what you've experienced.
Absolutely. And your knowledge is really helpful. And you can't replicate that. That's not something that they teach you. It really is an incident by incident, and you learn from that and you grow from that, which is, a testament to you as a professional, but also you said that you have a team, you have a strong team. That just is a testament to you as a leader of your area and for your college, that you know who those people are. You've built out your team in a way that will support you and the college's efforts when it comes, to emergency communications time. You mentioned trainings. How frequently would you say that your team runs through this so that, it isn't, you had a person who was on the job for a week. So now how frequently do you go back and revisit these things so that everyone does know what their roles are when an emergency happens?
We have Fridays off in the summer. We work 10-hour days, and then we don't work on Fridays. So because we have fewer faculty projects, we have a lot of time to really focus on ourselves. So in the summer, we workshop every week, just our little team of 6. We workshop every week. And that's one of the things that we workshop, just to make sure everybody has muscle memory. It really is about building your skills. I don't think that there's an easy way to do that level of work and to be able to do it, understanding that everybody knows that they have a part to play and what part they have to play, without committing to having those people trained and just practicing. And then whenever our college services department has an exercise, we make sure that we're engaged in that exercise, and we take that exercise seriously, because you never know when you need to have those skills, and it helps to already have that process ingrained.
Sure.
Absolutely. And you mentioned 18 years of experience and you've been at St. Philip's for 7 years. So
yes.
What was happening before St. Philip's?
Sure. So my background is in newspaper. So I have a long career in newspaper. And then I started in 2006 at Coastal Bend College, which is in Beeville, Texas. Go Cougars. I was there for a few years. And then I got a promotion at Tarrant County College, which is in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I was in Fort Worth for about 4 years. And I had the opportunity to be a director. And that was really where I wanted my career path to go. So I was recruited by St. Philip's College, and I've been here in San Antonio for 7.5 years.
Well, terrific. And with that experience, I'm sure you've learned some best practices, some maybe tips and tricks. Could you share maybe 3 things for our members that you would consider as the best practice for us to make sure that we're ready for a crisis on our campuses?
Sure. My first would be look at what FEMA offers and take advantage of that. It's not going to cost you anything but that time commitment. My second is don't put your entire team in the same location. That is a huge FEMA no-no. Don't do it. You will not be able to function if your entire team is together, because you need to make sure, one, that if something happens in that location, you still have part of the team available to pick up the slack. And two, you can't deal with the media if you're not outside, because when you're in the bubble, you can't go back and forth in and out of the bubble most times. So you need to make sure that your team has a plan that includes 2 or 3 different locations. And was that 2?
That was 2.
And 3, practice, talk about it, commit to it, and get it done. Like I said, we do it over the summer. So I recommend, working with your team to make sure everybody knows how they fit into that.
And a bonus recommendation.
A bonus, oh no, I wasn't expecting a 4th. I think the bonus recommendation is to be calm, rely on your training, because this is not a moment to have a freak out. So if you have a freak out, please take your freak out somewhere else. Just be calm and be professional and rely on what you know.
Yeah, thank you. All great info.
Yeah, and great feedback too. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's the free resources. That is a huge one, as you don't have to build this from scratch. You mentioned you have a police department. We have a police department also. This is my personal opinion. Don't wait for them to come to you with this information. Again, the resources are available on the FEMA website. At our college, we're bringing back the CERT program, which is the Community Emergency Response Team. We're bringing that back in this year. We're training people because very similar, you want to be ready. We're in an earthquake prone area. We do once a year earthquake training, but that's it, so really that muscle memory, I think your tips are really great in practice. And even if you do practice, you're not going to be perfect, but at least it's not going to be foreign to you. And then nobody can replicate your 18 years of learned experience. That is, ooh,
thank you.
Yes.
I've seen stuff. This is one of the functions of marketing where you really see some stuff you wish you hadn't seen and have conversations you wish you didn't have to have.
Absolutely. Well, Adrian, thank you so much. Unfortunately, times 1,000. Adrian, thank you so much for your time today, for your sharing your experience with crisis comms, for being forthright with the not so fun parts of it. I mean, I don't know that anyone's ever associated crisis comms and fun. I don't think they've ever met in any Venn diagram ever. But your information is really helpful, and it was really nice chatting with you today. So thanks so much for coming to the pod.
Thank you so much.
You're going to have to host your own presentation, because it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, because from my ears it was blah, 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 blah.
No, that was fantastic. Good. I think so many of us, so many of us go into flight mode. I like how you just kind of frame it like your team does weekly stuff. Like, that's bananas to me. It's wonderful. We should all do it.
Only in the summer.
Well, but that's still.
Well, you know what? It came out of, it's very hard for us marketing people to get professional development.
Yes.
Because a lot of professional development is around academics, and we don't fit in that box. And so I was saying, okay, we have a new team. We need to have like 2 days worth of professional development. I'm not going to get away with 2 whole days of locking the door.
Right.
So I developed this summertime schedule where it's the afternoon, faculty's probably not here, it's a little quieter. And so we could get in a 2-hour training jag over, 8 weeks, whereas trying to get 2 days in was not going to happen. So that's where that came from.
That's great. Great job planning that for your team. Utilizing that slow summer schedule to get it in. Great job.
Yep. I'm working on that now. Summer 24.
I need to figure out how to get my team 4 10s and a Friday off. That's what I need to figure out.
Oh man, it's fun on Fridays, but Monday to Thursday is a haul.
It sucks, Matt. Don't do it. It's the worst. It's the worst. 12 weeks. So painful.
It's painful. It is.
So painful.
What if you did it every other week so you get a 4-day weekend?
That would be better. If we did 980s, 980s would be way more palatable.
Can You Make It Pretty is presented by the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations. NCMPR is the country's premier group for PR, communications, and marketing pros at two-year colleges. Can You Make It Pretty is mixed by Bill Aldridge at Third City Sound in Joliet, Illinois, and produced by me. I'm Jacqueline Johanna Garver, and I'm the Communication and DEI Manager for NCMPR. Can You Make It Pretty is available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. If you like what you've heard, we'd love it if you subscribed, downloaded, rated, and reviewed.